Good morning and welcome this morning. Thanks for all joining us here at 8 o'clock after I know were a few late nights last night. Appreciate that. We're here today to talk about innovation. And we're talking about innovation in a sense that is maybe a little different from how many people conceive innovation. Innovation can tend to mean that one great insight that is your new product or service, that great new idea. And those are very, very important. But innovation also means those decisions that you have to make every day, every week, every month about which new ideas, which new technologies, which new approaches you're going to bring into your organization. So the adoption of innovation is actually a much more frequent decision that people have to make than that core invention. So say they're both important, but in terms of the frequency, you're constantly faced with a flood of ideas and technologies, and you have to decide which is right for me and which is right for me now. And what we're going to do today is take you through some trends, some ideas, some technologies, and some approaches that are going to help inform those decisions. In terms of the importance of making the right decisions, the National Intelligence Council has done a study into the future of countries and who's going to win, who's going to be struggling. And one of their conclusions is very similar about innovation, that it's not necessarily those countries who invent the innovation that are going to be the global winners. It's much more those who are able to access and adopt new technologies. And that's something that's very relevant to everybody in this room. So we're going to look at some specific trends themselves, and we're going to look at that from the perspective of societal technology and some business trends. We're also going to look at some strategies. What are some methods and approaches for you on a daily basis to think about the options that you have available to you and how you're going to make those decisions to bring those into the organization, and in particular, when is the right time to do that. So as we look at this space of technology and society and business, these are very interconnected ideas. Obviously within IT, we're much more tightly focused on the technological perspective, and very often the big shifts that we see happening in our businesses are technology-led. But they also often have to intersect with what's happening in society. The people, the culture, and the broader acceptance of technology has to align with the capabilities that are coming along from technology. And we get these major shifts, these pushes into areas that are becoming important, like digital relationships. What does that mean? Sustainability, consumerization. On the business side, there's obviously an impact that these technologies, these shifts have on the way we run our business, on the opportunities that we are able to provide to our stakeholders and to our customers. And today I'm going to be joined by Steve Prentice, who's going to also talk about some of the business trends and a new hype cycle we've created around the business trend side of things. Actually, Steve was supposed to be here by now. Mark, can you maybe check if we can find him? Thank you. So let me start with some societal trends. Some of these are very well established, but not always well integrated into strategic planning. So we have trends like the aging population that are one of those well-acknowledged ones. We have in many developed nations a population that is growing older in relation to the number of working people who are available to support through taxes and other support. A rise in single living caused by those same phenomenon. In the middle here, these charts show some of the key differences globally among populations. These are population pyramids that the US Census Bureau puts out, where the left-hand side is male, the right-hand side is female, and bottom to top is the age of the population. So the lowest bar is the youngest population, 0 to 4. The highest bar is the largest, over 100. So we can see some of those geographic areas where we have this population pyramid that is actually shrinking at the bottom. Developed nations like Germany and Japan. And in Germany, we see a big peak there in the middle with the baby boomer population becoming the largest population force. But it's not uniform. We look at countries like India, where there's still very high birth rate, and population continues to maintain with a slight dip at the bottom there. See how they've cleverly designed their population pyramid to look like the top of the Taj Mahal. I think that's quite impressive. Then we have China with the impact of the one child per family policy causing some of that shrinking at the bottom as well. And actually theirs looks more like the top of a Tibetan temple, which they might not actually like to see that for theirs. And then the US actually looks more like an emerging economy in terms of the population, and that's because of the immigration policies that we have here and the high birth rate to some of the immigrant populations. So that's a kind of situation that's not caused by the native policies but by immigration. So a healthy surge there. So these lead to other types of trends in terms of the demographics, potentially as overall globally population continues to grow, resource constraints. We also see shifts in where people choose to live. Overall, globally, a shift towards urbanization, and then some of the challenges and stresses that causes in terms of the density of the population. And technology, of course, having a major impact on lifestyle and shifts, and psychological shifts in terms of how we relate to technology. All of this causes changes in and opportunities in how we deliver to society, and from a technology context, it's a very interesting area to look at and see how do these trends relate to innovation and the types of innovation that we're going to be seeing. So, for example, in healthcare, we are seeing a surge in numbers, the potential for numeric-based healthcare. So people who go jogging, strapping on heart monitors, and capturing their vital signs and uploading it to their PCs, and going to sites that compare that with their friends and buddies who are engaging in similar sports. All of this is giving us mass access to information of health tracking over periods of time that hasn't, on a scale that hasn't been available before. So using some of those insights for, what does the lead up to certain types of conditions look like? We perhaps have that data now, whereas before it's been a very reactive style of healthcare. And as we get these technologies hitting on the consumer side, they become cheaper, more efficient, and can be adopted for other types of application in a business context as well. One thing I did just want to mention was the impact of zeitgeist. Zeitgeist is not so much a trend, it's something that's much longer and deeper and more enduring, and it's often something we're very unaware of as we look and try and predict where things will head. We assume that things will always be the same as they are today in terms of people's attitudes. And zeitgeist means the kind of spirit of the times. And times last, well, at least a decade, sometimes 20 to 30 years. So a couple of decades ago, it was kind of obvious that you were supposed to be good consumers. Now, there's much more of a focus on environmentalism, very overt environmentalism. And we can ask, well, is that a fad? Is green going to go away in a year or two? I was watching the Epcot fireworks with my family a couple of nights ago, and we watched the fireworks bloom and explode, and they leave these streaks of smoke in the sky when they're finished. And my 10-year-old turned to me and said, "Mom, isn't that smoke bad for the environment?" And I had no answer. I have never inquired whether fireworks are bad for the environment. It's not something that I've ever in my whole life actually wondered about, although I'm a very curious person. And she asked me a couple of times. So this is obviously something that was bothering her. And that, I think, is something that's entrenched into a new generation of that concern for the environment, and that will be part of the zeitgeist. It's not a trend. It's something deeper and longer term in terms of the attitudes that people will have and how that will inform their buying decisions, investment decisions as they become consumers. One of the trends we continue to see that's a very major impact on IT is consumerization. We've been seeing this and talking about this for several years now, and it's been capabilities like people introducing new devices into the organization, things they own and love from home and want to bring them in and do their email on it and store corporate data on it, and all the headaches that gives IT with having to figure out how to make it secure and compliant and all those good things. And we've seen it with the collaboration and productivity tools in particular. You know, I want to access Facebook, I want to use instant messaging, all those great tools. And most recently, we've seen it with some of the Web 2, the community and content sites that become very useful ways to communicate and collaborate. So organizations want to look and say, well, what does Facebook mean to us? Perhaps we don't want to actually adopt Facebook, but it's clearly a very powerful community tool. How can we get some of that in our organization and leverage that? So we wanted to kind of look ahead and say, well, where does that go next, and where is it going now? And we think where consumerization is currently focused is around the application layer. So we see the roaring success of app stores. We see more and more types of organizations thinking about opening up their content, their data, and in some cases their code in the forms of APIs that can be broadly used by third parties to add value. Clearly the online consumer world has done it in big time with Apple and Facebook and others, but other interesting ones. Car companies, Ford looking at providing a telematics platform as APIs so that information that's coming out of somebody's car can be made available for others to take and analyze and create who knows what types of interesting applications on top that you might want to have in your car. Now, obviously, that's not going to be controlling your car. There'd be a little safety issue there. But in terms of analytics or media or other types of in-car services, the aim is to unleash that creativity that we've seen in other areas. So what do you have that is data, that is access to content that you can leverage this kind of crowdsourced idea that if we make it available, if we put APIs on it, we can perhaps get thousands of people writing really neat apps for us if they have access to appropriate types of information. So that's where we see it now. Then we were speculating on where does this go in the future? Beyond apps, what else could be consumerized? And we're starting to look at data. Data has traditionally been owned by corporations. When we spend money with a company, when we have an interaction with a physician, that data goes somewhere else, is stored somewhere else, and other people are making money from it. Well, as we lay down more and more of these digital trails, as we have our heart rate monitors that are generating data, and we have our Twitter feeds and other things going on, perhaps we want to take better control of that. One of the areas that's never really been fully exploited is the idea of a personal data repository where you declare who you want to see the data and under what circumstances. So the Liberty Alliance types of initiatives that haven't really quite made it. But we're thinking perhaps the time is right now, with the flood of public information that's out there, to have, and some of the challenges that come